Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Thank you.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello, Planeswalkers. This is Jumbo Commander, and today I want to talk to you about Jace the Mind Sculptor. He was recently unbanned in Modern, announced in Masters 25. Jace the Mind Sculptor's price has skyrocketed, and everyone's talking Jace. Well, I'm here to talk a little bit of trash about Jace. I think Jace sucks in Commander. First thing I want to cover is, no, this actually isn't clickbait. I'm eventually going to talk about Commander theory and why Planeswalkers are underwhelming in multiplayer games, and Jace specifically. But I'm also here to celebrate, because this video has been sponsored by Zach. Zach has given me a Jace the Mind Sculptor to give away to one of you. So stay tuned for later in the video to find out how you could win a Jace the Mind Sculptor. So let's take a look at all four modes on Jace the Mind Sculptor. +2, look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. Okay, this is what's commonly known as Fate Seal. It's like Scry, but you can scry your opponent's deck. This has the ability to be pretty powerful. But one thing we don't necessarily do is judge a Planeswalker by the plus ability. Sometimes we want it to hit the battlefield and really have an impact. So let's go ahead and look at the 0 and the minus ability on Jace first, before we dive into any of the other abilities really deeply. The 0 is draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand back on top of your library in any order. This is Brainstorm. Okay, this is a normal effect that we're pretty useful, and it can give you a lot of card advantage. The -1 says return target creature to its owner's hand. It's a very simple unsummon. And finally the -12, wow, 12's pretty far away. Exile all cards from target player's library, then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library. Wow, this kind of just says win the game in a couple turns. Jace's ultimate is very powerful. Let's take a look at each one of these abilities and find out what its advantage is in Commander. Well, just a little bit of history. Fate Seal used to be seen in Commander a lot more often. The card Spin into Myth used to be really good before the Tuck rule changed. Spin into Myth reads, put target creature on top of its owner's library, then Fate Seal 2. That means you could put a commander on top of your opponent's library and then bury it at the bottom of their deck. Ugh. They changed the rules so that you can put the commander back in the command zone whenever it changes any zone. Goes on top of your library, goes into your hand, whatever, you can put it back into the command zone. So Spin into Myth isn't really seen anymore, but that doesn't mean Fate Seal isn't pretty awesome. First thing, Fate Sealing yourself for 1. It's just Scry. It's not that great. I think the only reason why you would tick it up on yourself is to get that +2 onto Jace. Maybe you're ticking Jace up, because the real card advantage comes from the 0 ability. I would like to start off by saying that there is one great combo that works with Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that is the majesty of the card Tunnel Vision. Tunnel Vision, 5 and a blue for a sorcery, name a card. Target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until the named card is revealed. If it is, that player puts the rest of the revealed cards into his or her graveyard and puts the named card on top of his or her library, otherwise the player shuffles his or her library. Okay, so what you do is you Fate Seal with Jace. You pay attention to what card you put on the bottom of their library, then you name it with Tunnel Vision, and then you will mill all the way down to the very last card in their library, and then you'll be like, yep, and then that will be their deck. And then they're just one short turn away from milling out completely. Now this is the wonderful janky combo that would have me running Jace in my deck. It'll also have me running Hinder, Spell Crumple, that Spin into Myth I mentioned, anything to make this Tunnel Vision work, because it really does cause agony from your opponents. It's majestic. I do feel like it's more satisfying milling out your opponent. If you know your own bottom card with Jace, you can use Tunnel Vision on yourself in conjunction with a Lab Maniac to win the game all at once. It's that 0 ability that gets everyone excited. Brainstorm's a pretty good card. I mean, You don't see it very often in EDH unless you have some combo working with it, maybe shuffle effects or you're setting up the top of your deck somehow, but you know, I see it around every so often. And to be honest, if Jace the Mind Sculptor is able to sit on the battlefield casting Brainstorm turn after turn after turn, then it's going to be pretty good. The problem is that if it doesn't sit around, a 4-mana Brainstorm sucks. Concentrate, the same mana cost as Jace, the same speed as Jace, just has you drawing 3 cards, and people are not excited about Concentrate. So this means that the go-to mode for Jace the Mind Sculptor has to be activated multiple times for us to really be happy with this card. Sometimes you just want a Brainstorm effect. Here are the 3 most popular commanders that include Jace the Mind Sculptor. 2 of them, Narset Enlightened Master and Maelstrom Wanderer, really benefit from setting up the top of your library. It lets you cast free spells. I think Jace is a perfect include in these types of decks. Setting up what cards you cast for free is going to be incredibly powerful. And of course, the most popular commander running Jace the Mind Sculptor is Atraxa Praetor's Voice. This is most likely because of the popularity of Super Friends decks, which are designed to protect the Planeswalkers. And like I said before, if Jace can be protected, Brainstorm after Brainstorm after Brainstorm is quite good. That's a lot of card advantage. And I believe it is possible to build a deck that does protect Jace the Mind Sculptor. So with 2 of those commanders, putting stuff back on top of your library gained a large advantage. Another advantage that comes with manipulating the top of your library is in fetch lands, or anything else that can shuffle your deck. You can throw trash back on top and then shuffle it away. Or if you happen to have some incidental mill that can mill those useless cards into your graveyard. Let's talk about Jace's next effect, Unsummon. I think this is underwhelming. It brings Jace down to just 2 loyalty. Unsummon at sorcery speed is a very underwhelming card, and oftentimes in a multiplayer format, you just have too many things to unsummon. That being said, sometimes you need to just unsummon something, and it's nice that Jace has this ability. I just think it's a little bit underwhelming in a multiplayer setting. And finally, his last ability, which is Win. It is so good, it just destroys someone, which is kind of fun to do. But let's pause and take a moment to find out how we get to that win condition. We go from 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9, 9 to 11, 11 to 13, and then finally on the 6th activation, we go minus 12, and that's if Jace isn't touched. Ugh, that is not a good timeline for winning the game. You really, truly have to have the game locked up to pull off this ultimate. So let's candidly talk for a moment and try and figure out what Jace is and what Jace isn't. Well, Jace is incremental control. He is excellent as a control planeswalker. It can cut off your opponent's draws with that Fate Seal. That's really good in 1v1 when you need to control the top of your opponent's deck. It's a really strong plus when you already have the board controlled and your opponent's hand controlled. The Zero ability lets you see 3 cards and put 2 cards back. That's digging pretty deep, and in control decks, you are looking for specific answers to situations, and so being able to see more cards is very powerful. The -1 ability is sometimes relevant. You need to be able to protect your Jace the Mind Sculptor, and being able to control creatures on the board is part of that. And honestly, it doesn't matter that the ultimate is so far away, because the plus ability essentially is a control ability for the top of your opponent's deck. So they have to get around the top of deck control as you're stepping up to your win condition. Now that I'm thinking about it, in a control deck, Jace hits a lot of different answers and different needs that I could want as I'm trying to close out and control a game. But control is actually very difficult to pull off in a multiplayer setting. In Commander, can someone truly control the other 3 players at the table? It becomes very, very difficult, and in a lot of competitive Commander games, you're not really about controlling each opponent, you're about disrupting the exact right spell. or you're about taxing your opponent or hating them out so that they don't have the ability to play at all. So control comes in a different form than Jace the Mind Sculptor and maybe traditional control decks that you might see being created in Modern. Interesting. And the reason why control has to take that direction is because we just don't have the resources. In a 1v1 game, it's very easy to play zero sum, meaning my resource answers yours, we're both down a single resource. In multiplayer, you just can't do that because there's two other people at the table going, sweet, they're using up their resources against one another. People have said that you need to build a deck around Jace, that it's hard to just throw Jace in your blue deck. And this is just what some professional players are saying about Modern. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about Modern, but I listen to what they say and that makes sense, that Jace kind of needs a shell to slot into. And in Commander, it might be very difficult to construct a shell that properly fits Jace the Mind Sculptor. Multiplayer is also not very kind to Jace because you will get 3 attack phases in a 4-player game before it comes around to your turn. So it's very likely that Jace will be attacked, and it's actually so likely because there's a mythos, an overreaction, a craze that enters people's eyes when they see a Jace hit the battlefield. It's not that good. A brainstorm is not that powerful. People can let Jace sit on the battlefield a few turns and not really freak out about it taking over the game of Commander. But that's not what happens. People's eyes get big and they just start swinging at Jace. And very often, you've drawn hate for a card that only generated you a brainstorm? Now that's just not a good trade at all. If we're talking about politics, you've played a card that makes everyone focus on you, has people attacking your Jace, and you haven't really impacted the board. I mean, the only thing that really does impact the board is that -1 bounce ability. And that's not impactful enough in this multiplayer game. So politically, are you prepared to deal with the overreaction? Does your playgroup properly assess Jace and how it sits at the table? Are you okay with playing a Planeswalker that will only brainstorm you and absorb a few hits from your opponent's creatures? Do you think that you can protect Jace to have multiple brainstorms over multiple turns? We don't have to have all the answers to all of these questions, and we don't have to play Jace perfectly to have fun in Commander. So if you want to play Jace, go ahead and play him, and I'm going to help you out if you're lucky enough. But first, what happens if you don't have a Jace to play with? Well, I say don't worry about it, there's tons of great alternatives. How about one of the cheapest Planeswalkers you can buy, Jace Architect of Thought? Okay, so the +1 affects all of your opponents, so it's okay at multiplayer and kind of protects maybe other Planeswalkers, protects your board, pretty good for a plus. The minus is a little bit of a weaker factor fiction, but it can be used politically. You might just get 3 of the exact cards that you want. And the -8 is super fun and can be doubling seasoned into, whereas Jace the Mind Sculptor can't even doubling season its way into an ultimate. Next up, if you really want some card selection, go for Dig Through Time, only 75 cents. This goes 7 deep and you get to choose exactly what you want. Do you want a little bit of more raw power and even cheaper? You can play Manifold Insights, 3 CMC for 40 cents, and you just flip over 10 cards and each one of your opponents picks one to go into your hand. So Manifold Insights gets better in multiplayer settings. Some of you might even play in 5 or 6 player games, and Manifold Insights could draw you a ton of cards. These are so much more fun and interesting than Jace, and so I'm going to encourage you to play with these by giving a bunch of them away. So not only will someone win a Jace the Mind Sculptor here, but I'm going to give away Architects of Thoughts and Dig Through Times and Manifold Insights, tons of giveaways because it's the celebration of 20,000 subscribers. Let's go into some details. This video was sponsored by Zach Eston. Zach sent me a Jace the Mind Sculptor. to give away to one of you, and I'm going to double the prize. 2 Jaces given away. One of them randomly on YouTube and another one sent out to any of my Patreons. If you want to join Patreon and have a 1 in 40 chance of winning Jace instead of a 1 in 1,000 chance, then go ahead and head on over and sign up. I give away cards to patrons every single month, and this month is definitely going to be a doozy. I'll be announcing who won the Jaces in exactly 1 week. To be entered to win on YouTube, just like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. If you're a patron of the correct tier, you are already entered to win this Jace, so good luck. Let's say you're a Commander fan and you don't actually care about Jace the Mind Sculptor. I will sell it for you and build you an entire Commander deck worth more than the price of Jace the Mind Sculptor. So if you like powerful, iconic cards that maybe you can trade to a modern player, or you just want to try Jace out for yourself, or you have a tunnel vision, do you know what? I'll throw in a tunnel vision to the people that win Jace the Mind Sculptor. That's great. I'd love to send that Jace out to you. But if you're just a Commander player and you like, I'm not going to use this Jace, I'd rather have another Commander deck, I will build one for you. So this is just a win-win-win giveaway, and I just really want to say thank you so much. I'm going to be really close to 20,000 subscribers. And I'm really grateful for all of the support I have on Patreon, and really all the support I hear from all of you in the comments and on Twitter. I think this community is really great, and I can think of no better way than to share some Jace and some Commander cards with you. So thank you once again. And again, I have to mention that this video has been sponsored by Zach. Thank you, Zach, so much. Everyone is gonna love you for giving away a Jace just for the hype of Jumbo Commander. Speaking of which, like, subscribe, comment below, join Patreon, win Jaces, be awesome. Cheers to 20,000 subscribers and hope for 20,000 more. Thanks.